The wind howled across the dry plains as Jacob Turner stood outside his small wooden ranch house, staring down the long dirt road. Dust rolled across the empty land like waves on a dead sea. His ranch had once been strong, full of cattle and life, but the past 2 years had nearly destroyed it. Disease had taken most of his herd. Drought had ruined the grass. And the bank in town had already warned him that if things didn't improve soon, the ranch would belong to someone else. That night, he was waiting for something he never thought he would do, his mail-order bride. Jacob wasn't a man who talked much, and he certainly wasn't a man who believed in love arriving by stagecoach. But loneliness had a way of wearing a man down. The letter he received months earlier from a woman named Clara had been simple but honest. She wrote that she wanted a new life in the West and wasn't afraid of hard work. The distant sound of wheels creaking finally reached his ears. A stagecoach slowly appeared through the dust and stopped in front of the ranch. The driver climbed down and helped a young woman step onto the ground. She looked smaller than Jacob expected, wrapped in a plain brown coat with a small suitcase in her hand. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her eyes quickly scanned the land around her. "You must be Jacob Turner," she said gently. Jacob nodded. "And you're Clara." The driver handed down her suitcase and tipped his hat before, leaving them alone in the quiet prairie. Clara looked around at the broken fence nearby, the empty cattle pen, and the tired barn leaning slightly to one side. Most people might have looked worried, but she didn't. Instead, she smiled. "Your ranch isn't dying," she said calmly. Jacob frowned. "Ma'am, I hate to break it to you, but it is." She knelt near the dry soil and picked up a handful of dirt, rubbing it between her fingers. Then she walked toward the barn and looked at the water trough. "How long has the water been sitting like this?" she asked. "A while," Jacob admitted. Clara stood up and brushed the dust from her hands. "The problem isn't the land. It's the way it's being used." Jacob crossed his arms, unsure what she meant. That evening, instead of resting from her long trip, Clara went straight to work. She cleaned the water troughs, cleared the clogged irrigation ditch behind the barn, and showed Jacob how the underground spring feeding his land had been blocked by debris. By lantern light, they worked for hours, digging and clearing mud from the narrow channel. Then suddenly, water rushed through. Fresh water flowed across the dry field again for the first time in months. Jacob stared in disbelief as the soil began to darken with moisture. Clara wiped sweat from her forehead and gave him a tired smile. "My father was a land engineer back east," she explained. "He taught me how water decides whether land lives or dies." Over the next few days, Clara reorganized the ranch completely. She rotated the grazing areas,